Remarks on US-India Dialogue 2+2. The discourse occurred on April 11 in Washington, D.C., USA, with the participation of U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, Indian Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar and Indian Defense Minister Rajnath Singh. Talking at the launch of the dialogue, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken accentuated that while the world circumstance and the locale have seen numerous incredible changes, the connection among Washington and New Delhi is a higher priority than any time in recent memory. The exchange experiencing the same thing, the Russia-Ukraine struggle has placed Moscow and the West in a showdown, uncommon strain after the Cold War. The U.S.-China contest has become furious and complete in numerous angles. The world economy gives indications of recuperation after the COVID-19 pandemic, however it is lopsided, the worldwide store network is broken, there is an energy emergency, and simultaneously, it relies upon the avoidance and control of the plague on the kickoff of the economy of significant nations and districts. China-India relations stay confounded. China is both an especially significant exchanging accomplice and India's greatest security challenge. Pakistan has another top state leader, yet the position from Islamabad on Kashmir will stay unaltered. Sri Lanka, which has exceptional relations with the two India and China, is confronting hardships when it has recently proclaimed a default. Specifically, notwithstanding tension from the West, India keeps up with its non-partisanship and will not show its demeanor to Russia about the ongoing clash in Ukraine. It is normal that the discourse will achieve extraordinary changes, fortify two-sided and multilateral participation, and adjust together to the new setting. On the U.S.-India respective relationship, the two nations keep on advancing participation in the battle against the COVID-19 pandemic. Both the U.S. and India are cooperating through an immunization association inside the system of the Quartet Security Exchange to give antibodies to the whole Asia-Pacific locale. Strategically, the two consented to keep advancing reciprocal relations. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken focused on that the U.S.-India relationship assumes an especially significant part, while Indian Defense Minister Rajnath Singh confirmed that New Delhi generally gives first concern to the essential association with Washington. In the field of economy and exchange, the U.S. Secretary of State said that the different sides likewise talked about the objectives of advancing far-reaching financial development of every country specifically and the locale overall. Washington and New Delhi will before long send off the US-India trade dialogue and the US-India CEO discussion toward the finish of 2022. The US will work with India to supply increment the world's food. Specifically, throughout the previous time, in spite of the pandemic, the US and India have kept on advancing military collaboration with many new activities, expanded data sharing and strategic help. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said that the different sides had settled on a task to foster automated elevated vehicles, lay out a store network for the development of guard hardware, and take an interest in the joint activity Tiger Triumph. What's more, particularly, marked another spatial mindfulness, making a system for higher collaboration. The different sides likewise examined local and worldwide issues of common concern, for example, the Russia-Ukraine struggle, the COVID-19 pandemic, the environment emergency, and keeping a protected and prosperous Indo-Pacific, counterterrorism and training. One more sure from the dialogue is the agreement on Pakistan and China. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said he would uphold India in its disagreement about its northern line with China. He certified that with the development of foundation near the boundary of India, as well as nonsensical cases in the East Sea, China is dissolving the security of the Indo-Pacific. What's more, U.S. and Indian authorities likewise censured the psychological oppressor assaults in Mumbai and Panthakat, approaching Pakistan to make a quick move to fortify security, not to allow the domain to be taken advantage of by fearmongers. For haven and movement. Nonetheless, there are still a few conflicts and contrasts that are challenging to determine between the U.S. and India. Particularly India's situation on the Russo-Ukrainian struggle. The U.S. proclamation on China-India line debates, the South China Sea, or approaching Pakistan to fortify counter-psychological warfare and New Delhi's approval. Specifically, the U.S. has not yet settled on whether to defer the utilization of the Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act, CAATSA, with India after the S-400 arrangement. Be that as it may, New Delhi actually wouldn't scrutinize Moscow's unique military activity. As per White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, the Ukraine issue was honestly examined during an internet-based conversation between U.S. President Joe Biden and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on April 11. Yet, while the gathering finished, the different sides actually disagreed on this issue. India keeps an impartial demeanor, attesting that New Delhi upholds Russia-Ukraine harmony talks and is prepared to give clinical help to Kiev. What the U.S. is attempting to advance, we don't figure India ought to speed up or increment Russian energy imports. The U.S. stands prepared to help and keep up with discourse with India on energy expansion. However, there is no particular inquiry and explicit response about India's energy imports from Russia. Another point that makes India miserable is the assertion of U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken about common liberties in the South Asian country. Blinken said Washington was checking a few intriguing improvements with regards to India about denials of basic freedoms against Muslims. Be that as it may, the U.S. Secretary of State and two senior Indian authorities didn't resolve this issue further. In this way, with the above outcomes, it is feasible to see the advancement pattern of U.S.-India relations in the approaching time. From one viewpoint, the two nations keep on extending collaboration in legislative issues, economy and military, keeping up with agreement on China and Pakistan. Then again, the different sides endeavor to determine the distinctions that exist, particularly over Russia. And you? What do you think about this? Please leave your comments and subscribe to the channel to follow the content of the next videos.